If you've watched other of my videos, you've certainly heard me refer to negative space as I draw, drawing something by negative space. So I thought it would be helpful to highlight exactly what I mean. I use this expression in a couple of different ways, and I use it when I draw in a couple of different ways. If we draw an object, by drawing the object such as this block standing up on the ground, then we've drawn it using positive space. We've drawn the object. However, we can also draw the same object by drawing the shape around the object, by drawing, in effect, where the object isn't. And that's called drawing by negative space. So, how might this look doing real drawings rather than little schematic diagrams? I partly thought of the idea for this video because in this drawing I've just done, this small shrubby tree here, I drew as much through negative space as I did through positive space. Now, I did do some positive drawing marks to establish a rough, approximate silhouette. But when it came time to actually create the visual impression of the tree, I was doing it mostly by negative space, by actually drawing the space behind, which was easy to draw because it's all dark. And so by creating the dark background in my drawing, the tree comes into existence. And of course, in practice subjects such as this, we end up drawing through a combination of positive and negative space. Drawing completely by negative space can be fun for a drawing exercise, but often it's a combination of the two, of doing some positive space drawing with some sort of outline, but also reinforcing that by drawing the negative space, or add to it by doing some of it exclusively with negative space. But then we can also, of course, add more positive space over the top. So I can add some positive space hatching to create some of the effect of shadow or shade on this bush. And so when we look at this, we see, in inverted commas, this bush here, this small tree here, partly through the negative space drawing and partly through the positive space drawing. It's a very helpful way to think because it gives us such versatility in our marks and how we can create fairly effectively something which is really quite complex if we were just going to try and draw it in positive space. This, of course, is not just for trees. If we look at this drawing, again, while I did use some outlining of positive space in that I did some single lines to indicate the tracery in this stone window, I mostly drew, if you like, the tracery, and certainly visually the impact comes from really drawing the tracery through negative space by drawing the shadows, the gap between the spaces, by drawing not the tracery, but by focusing on drawing the gap between the tracery, which again I could draw easily because of the shadows behind. And when we draw by drawing the shadows, we are in fact drawing by negative space. With these windows down the side of this building, although I drew, if you like, the framing of the windows using lines, drawing positive space, I created the feel of the windows going into the building by drawing the shadows, by drawing the gaps between the lines that would have defined those areas. And if we look here, we can see the same thing. I'm really drawing, and when I came up here, I was just drawing shadows to capture what was a fairly complex view of looking through various supports of this top part of the steeple. This is also an example of another way of drawing I refer to, of drawing the effect of the detail. It's not just with trees we draw the effect of the detail, but with architecture we can too. I didn't try and draw precisely the actual physical elements that I could see in the reference here. Instead, I tried to capture the effect of what we were seeing, particularly using the negative spaces by simply drawing the shadows, by drawing the spaces between the lines, not drawing the outlines. Going back to nature, you can see here that I've done the same thing here to establish these plants on the ground here. I've used the space around them to really draw them, to create them, to certainly give the effect of what we're looking at. But there's another way we can think of using negative space when we draw. Let's say I'm drawing this. And we have these two windows to place. Now, the window is a shape that's roughly like this, and it would be easy to rush into simply to start drawing this shape at some point along here. But instead of just focusing on this positive shape, if we look at the space between the shape, if we look at this space here, and if when we place this window, we're actually trying to draw this space, that helps us position our window well. So when I put this line, I'm not drawing this line, I'm actually drawing this line of this space. Can you see how it's a different way of thinking? So I want to create a rectangle that's approximately that shape. And now, and when I position this window next to it, I do the same thing. I'm looking at this as a shape, and I want to draw that shape here. And now to find the end of the building, I do the same thing. I'm looking at this shape here, and I'm wanting to draw it. So this shape, the proportions of that shape, I think will happen. I need to make sure I'm using the right reference point. Now it's clearly higher than it is wide, and that's what I want to make sure I do as well. Maybe a little bit wider would have been better. Maybe there. But you can see what I'm doing when I'm trying to position the elements. Rather than draw this in one go, or rather than draw this and then to put two of these in somewhere, what I'm doing is I'm looking at the various shapes that are created by the objects that I'm concentrating on, and I'm trying to draw these as much as I'm trying to draw these. So my thinking is draw the negative space, draw the positive space, draw the negative space, and more negative space at the end here. And this is what I use when I draw freehand to help me position my marks accurately, because we don't get to erase them. G'day, I'm Stephen Travers. I hope you found this explanation helpful. This is a part of my process, a part of my thinking, the way I observe. When we observe our reference, we want to be observing the negative shapes just as much as we observe the positive shapes. And if this has been helpful, then please remember to hit the like button for me. So I hope this gives you something to put into practice the next freehand drawing you do that can help you position things more accurately. It's a tremendously helpful way of thinking to incorporate into the way we approach a reference and the way then we translate that reference into marks on the paper. But whatever you draw, however you draw it, positively or negatively, make sure you have fun. I'll see you next time. Bye.